And as a matter of fact, in the future, we'll go over that case as a commentary in the future into details for the benefit of the people. Because that's a study within itself.
How do I get the flash drive and be approved? How's the RAM? I've been posting. People are asking about the flash drive. If you look, it's the USD drive that every time you see me put up USD, I'm telling you how to order. So when you see that banner, I'll put it up again. And you're part of House of Reawakening Minds just because you are who you are. We don't have a membership organization.
It's a state of political affairs.
State of being. Just be. Just be, and you are.
Yes.
That's the best way I can explain that.
Because the major, it's sort of like Noble Raleigh says, he came to make you priests unto yourselves. In other words, the real deal of it is part of the work of Noble Raleigh is actually to expose the corruption of the priesthood and present such knowledge as would liberate the people to become their own priests. Because they only lack knowledge. And that's the truth. And this is why a lot of people get confused when they become aware of the Moorish movement. They get confused about different people making different statements about Noble Raleigh, and they start worshiping him rather than paying attention to what he said when he actually came to liberate us and to redeem us from ignorance and from the lower self-principles of character by taking us back to the principles of our ancient mothers and fathers and putting us on a path of study that will reveal a lot more than you think that you know. That's why also he said the half has not been told. If I told you everything, you go back to sleep. And those of you who over the years started going into the scholarship, start recognizing immediately how deep in darkness we were, and how deep in darkness and ignorance many of your family members were that you may have assumed to be intelligent. That we were building our lives around a false paradigm for generations. And of course, that caused injury, schism, and destruction to our families and to the youth. However, it's our duty and responsibility to take responsibility and start fixing this thing. If you're breathing, you still can achieve.
Let me see. Here's some where's that? Questions. Someone wants to know.
Now, for those of you who have that the letter from Pope Francis to Barack H. Obama, this is where the nations of the earth, as we've been telling you all for the last 7 or 8 years, that the nation of the earth will stop buying U.S. Treasury bonds, then you'll understand the bonding system that was set up in 1861, what the Pope was making reference to about that 150 years ago, criminality, etc. And so by the bond systems, or by the nations stop buying U.S. Treasury bonds, which are actually put on the backs of the Moors, etc., who they tagged as African Americans, when Africa is America. America is Africa. And that's the truth. The deal of it is that the nations stop buying them. And so this is really, again, one, and it's not just the buying habits. It's another one of the reasons why many of your malls at North America started closing up. Those master malls all over the place, because they could not re-up, meaning that the nations gradually stopped accepting trade under the U.S. corporation, private commercial paper, petrodollar tied to the priesthood of the bishoprics of Rome, etc. So you've got to recognize that the nations of the world look at the U.S. Federal Reserve note differently than the people here do, because they already know that it's a fictional instrument of private debt fakery put upon the people by force of arms, and that it actually belongs to the Jesuits, which is another basic reason why that no accounts opened up with Federal Reserve notes belong to the people who account. It belongs to the banks. Is again why they can go into those accounts and take people's fiat that represent their labor trade at will without the people having any say so. And this is also why they can do things to the people, considering them as dead under the unum sanctum operations, and force nanovirus marks upon them under vaccines, etc., because they're claimed as dead in the first instance. This is again why it's important for people to make public reversion of the state, and it has to be in propria persona in their proper. And that's back to nationalization and principles of nationalization all over the world, not just here at North America. However, North America is the most destitute in relationship to knowledge of pedigree and traditions and customs. This is another reason why so much of this information is focused on the Moors of North America, not because you're the only one, because you need it the most, actually.
I want to ask, who's a whore? Who's I don't want to mess with the appellation. What is the relationship with Hagia Sophia in relation to the Moors? It looks like Moorish architecture.
Sophia?
Yeah.
So you're looking at Hagar?
Sophia? No, the structure.
The dome.
The dome, yeah. In Turkey. It's
on the borderline.
But it looks like Moorish architecture.
Of course it is. Of course it is. There's no secret. That's really no secret.
So the relationship to the Moors built it, constructed it, right?
So you're looking at the borderline between Asia and Africa. That's on the borderline. And you go back to the battles between Hannibal, Hasdrubal, Barca Bey, etc., and the military clashes between the Constantinians hiding under the name of Christian. You got to remember, Muslims are Christian.
Well, they say it was built as a Christian.
They say so, and you see it going back over the centuries, going back and forth
as a Christian basilica.
In these wars. Then it'd be a mosque. Then it'd be a church. Then it'd be a temple. Then it'd be a mosque, church. You'll see the history.
It'd be Negro, black, colored, African American. He's changing.
A lot of history.
Changes a lot.
It exposed a lot of history. Yes, it will.
Ruch L says, "How do we replace fiat?" You know, I can answer that, but go ahead and answer.
Fiat is related.
How do we replace it? How do we replace it?
You don't replace it. You claim your estate. See, the work that's going on today all over the world is the restoration of the lost estate of humanity. And when you see so much focus put on the Moors of North America, it is because we are the hub of the target of the Inquisition. It just spread to others. But the foundation of the Inquisition operation was against the Moors. And then you go to the Spanish Inquisition, Roman Inquisition, and you go to the Napoleonic Wars, etc., and they all lead to attacks of the Khazarians, guised or pretending to be Jews, attacking the wealthy Asiatic and Africans and taking over Iberia, taking over Europe. And the subsequent wars that you see take place is reflection of those continued wars. They will change the names of both people and lands in order to hide the fact that the problems that you're suffering today, politically and economically, are actually a continuation of the Inquisition, and it never ended. The fact that the people haven't been aware of it, they've been distracted and diverted, their energy has been diverted by curia members promoting the black codes, making the people think that Africans are black people, when the word is Middle English actually means pale color. And it has nothing to do with pedigree. It has to do with non-behavior, what we call branding or warning, in order to divert the people from the real history and the restoration of their lost estate. And logically, to restore the estates of the people, things must be put back in their proper order. And again, that has much to do with nationalization. So nationalization is not just a document or just the knowledge that these people of dark complexion are actually Moors. It is also the civic knowledge that accompanies it and a true chronology of the walk of man, except it must be restored with the people. And for those people who are honest about much of the work that Noble Drawley did, will tell the people the truth that the Moorish Holy Temple of Science is a civic organization. And the religious affidavit was only added in 1928 after the infiltration by J. Edgar Hoover with COINTELPRO operations to create schisms and divisions. Now that's a fact, and you can find that research in the FBI papers and also in the history of American religions.
Here's a question from Hartzell Killen. He says, Taj mentioned Liberia and Tunisia. Can you elaborate in depth? I'm a Liberian.
Yeah. For those who do some research into the congressional records and into the House journals, Senator Balboa, something like that, I forget proper name, etc. Because they were stealing the estates of the Moors here, um, tried to set up a venue on the east side of Africa, Liberia. That's where that really came from. Liberia is actually Moors from the west that were actually gathered together and taken to the east side of Africa in order to support the fiction that we were brought from there. And of course, we've always had problems with the corruption of the mental corruption of many of the Moors that went to the east side, bringing their corrupted Constantinian minds under the guise of Christianity. And as a matter of fact, during the time period of 93, 4, 5 in that area, I have had many conversations with the brother of the ambassador of Liberia, who used to call me regularly during that time. And we used to discuss some of the problems that a lot of the Liberians were having in relationship to those operations. And as a matter of fact, his brother came to California and he actually started a Moorish Science Temple in California too. That's for information for some of you who don't know. But keep in mind that was really a political colony set up by one of the senators um, to start a process of trying to take a lot of the Moors from this area to that area so they could claim the land. And of course, they've been claiming the land under the Inquisition, ever since. And many of you and your family members can trace back even to your modern generations where the members of the corporate state through the Bar Association have been stealing land that should have been inherited to all of you here. My family suffered that, and I know many of you had those stories. Once you understand that, you'll understand that the hybrid Europeans are not the people of the land, and the U.S. corporation democracy is not legitimate government, but are actually inquisition operations of them stealing your land and your resources. That's the truth. And that's what your relationship is with Liberia. It's a political transplant.
That Moors from Mexico, from the north, from here,
were transport Balboa.
And wasn't that called? Is that called? What is it when they become immigrants? Not immigrant.
No, they were though they were accepted because a lot of the family on that side already know that that America and Africa on that side are both African. America is just the name of this side, Al Morocco, or Morocco, or Maghreb is simply Morocco, the most extreme west, which is here. And so, but the problem that I find in talking with many of the family is the corrupted mind that many of our people have taken back there in the name of Christianity because of the misinformation that we've been trained with here, and that biased and superior pseudo righteous mindset that they have with that corruption, rather than recognizing the truth of the matter is that we're all one people.
Malik Day says, how do we write ourselves back in Morocco without the United States?
Well, you're doing it as you become conscious. Because remember, the only reason why the U.S. corporation operations is written in is because we've accepted the fraud. So once you know the truth, you take it to the hedges and the highways and expose it. And it's falling apart today. In these days, it's finally taking what you call real effect. That has much to do with everything crashing, or everything that was constructed by the priesthood. See, because in the Piscean energy, the dark priesthood had full reign because of the energy, the denseness of the energy. So they could make up all kinds of schisms and teach it to the people and call it religion. However, in the Aquarian energy, with the electrical energy of Uranus striking everything and Saturn cashing all checks, and we're talking about ethereal checks, it can't be maintained. And so, you see the people waking up willingly and unwillingly, both. They're coming into the new era of time, kicking and scratching. You know how they always ask for the truth, and then when they get it, they've been running? Go to Aquarian lights won't allow that anymore. And so the Aquarian lights that will refer to metamorphically or anthropomorphically as Jesus coming again, or the age of Aquarius, the dawning of the age of Aquarius, of I know. So people will be downloaded spiritually even if they weren't seeking it. It's a matter of development.
It's like an upgrade.
Yes, it was what it really
It's an
what
upgrade.
it is. And more people will just have lucid dreams, but it is part of really the activation of the pineal gland. That's all. So the ritual would be, the African ritual would be anointing my head with oil. That simply means the activation of the symbol of the pine cone, which is actually pineal gland. That's the truth. And it's also symbolized anthropomorphically with the ritual of ascending onto heaven, or the activation of the Kundalini. Kundalini is actually the activation of the pineal gland. So when you hear those terms in the Bible, that's what it actually means anthropomorphically. It actually means the activation of the spiritual glands of the body, and the awakening of the dormant light in the DNA. And the anthropomorphic stories of Jesus, etc., are really for children. And as you grow up, then you understand it's actually the science of the evolution of the body and of the spirit of man and the cognizance of man in relationship to both the astral and the concrete or the physical world. Also, the activation of the different chambers of the mind. So now the blind see. That's what that means. And the deaf hear. That's what it means. So you call it consciousness, coming from the dead, rising from the dead.
Somebody's asking a question. I don't even know if you know what they did, but I'll ask it. It says, does Victor Olulatabi, does Grand Sheik understand the meaning behind the ceremony the Arabs did in Egypt on the 3rd of April? What did they do?
You have to tell me.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to tell us.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Because Africans do ceremonies and
I wonder,
rituals
was
on a
that the
regular
mummy?
basis.
Was that was in the movement of
Oh,
the?
you talking about the movement?
Was that the movement of the mummies?
The movement
I don't know whether is it he's talking about the mummies.
If it's the movement of the mummies, if that's what they're making reference to, all you have to think is the Khazarian operators, i.e., calling themselves Jews and are not Jews, have been ruling the world, for these last hundreds of years, and they're losing power. You can look at the thoughts that may be among themselves, recognizing that some of the spells that was cast by the matriarchy of the high house, what you might call the pharaohs, um, actually has some power, and that they're trying to kind of make amends.
Yeah, they took like 22.
How about it?
If that's what it's about, they took 22 mummies and moved them to a brand new museum.
And keep in mind, it ain't all of, because remember, the demons are grave diggers, which is why they have the mummies of our forefathers in all of their museums. They're grave diggers, and one of the
grave robbers.
Yeah, grave diggers and grave robbers. Yes, you're grave robbers. You're right. And always having shown disrespect for the burial grounds all over the world. However, they also didn't take serious a lot of the spells that were cast and some written in stone on many of the tombs, etc. And they actually have this idea that nothing could bring them down or bring their power down, and they started enjoying the thrones that they had robbed, particularly since the Napoleonic Wars. And most of you scholars know them going around the world shooting off the noses of the ancient ones on statues and stones to hide the real history, etc. However, the experiences that they've been having as of late are leaning to the point that their institutions are being dismantled, and out of discomfort, for two reasons. Out of discomfort, thinking that they will make amends by bringing them together, and you also recognize they're also sending some artifacts that they've stolen from different African countries back to their places of origin. So you can kind of look at it along that line, recognizing sort of like when George Washington closed the lodge at Broad and Jupiter in Philadelphia, the Masonic Lodge, when he did the whoa, how they closed the lodge like that, when they thought they struck Hiram and that Hiram was dead, the great architect,
Hiram,
and Hiram of Biff, Ram, the Lamb of Biff, etc., great architect, and find out that they had a substitute. They thought they had totally conquered us, and find out we really did. And some things that they have promoted that when they've murdered many of us would not come back. And out of experience, they're discovering that a lot of these people that they're looking at in the modern times are really ancient people come back again. And while they would not accept that, evidence is coming about that they can't deny that, and they recognize that they don't have the power they thought they had. So they gather up the mummies, thinking that, as a token of respect, that some of them will be remembered as this transition is taking place. So some of them will be taken off planet, some of them will be disappeared, some of them will not be re-embodied. And so some of them are, say, trying to buy favor, as they might say, from the gods. Think about it. Maybe that's it.
Jason L says, ask, do the Chinese know about the Moors?
Of course they do, because they are Moors.
We hear a lot about China, and I know there's the people of China, and then there's the so-called CCP. But when you get down into the backstory, you find out that
CCP is really the Khazarian operators who have invaded China. You all remember the Opium Wars, and then you'll understand the Communist Party that have nothing to do with the Aboriginal people of China. They've been under occupation. That's being dismantled. Also,
But what I was going to say is that there's been a lot of gold stolen, Chinese gold stolen by the U.S. And so
you say the Vatican.
The Vatican.
There you go.
And so they're, everybody's complaining about them coming over here taking land, but they're taking it in lieu.
Concepts are wrong. Concepts are wrong.
That's what people are saying.
Remember, that's the hybrid Europeans making those statements.
Right. So they're saying that
Chinese have been here with us, our brothers, for thousands of years, not hundreds, thousands of years. And if you go to many of the ancient or Chinese elders, and they'll tell you about the Naga, because many of them are descendants of the Naga, coming from Central Amexem, that you now call Asia Seoul or Africa today. That's the truth. And for those who want to look at family, etc., how about looking at Nigeria? And then look at a lot of traditions and customs. And then remember some of the activities in Africa dealing with albinos in traditions and customs. Then look again at Tianyi, what did you call China, i.e. Manchuria. Even look at the architecture. Mm-hmm. Even look at the headdress with the tassels. Mm-hmm. Look at the structures. Look at the colors, how they're used, the vibrations, the herbs. You got to understand that we're extended family. Get over it.
Here's a question: Noble Drew Ali's parents were Noble Drew Ali's parents Mary and Joseph?
Well, you can look at it this way. The principle of Mary and Joseph is Isis and Horus, actually. And yes, you come again. But then you got to recognize what you see and where you see it. And it needs no proof. Just look at the work. You got to remember, well, you got to re-know, really, because you already know. That some of you are your own forefathers. So get over that too. A lot of concepts that we've adopted under Rome's misdirection will be cleared up and dissolved.
Need Chronicle asks this question. I have this is funny. Dr. G, please ask Taj when he thinks the people will get their hands on free energy technology that could help relieve the people's economical burden. But before he answers the question, no, but before he answers the question, there's just something that happened today. So there was a light in my powder room that blew out.
Oh, don't tell him that.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell him. There was a light blew out in my powder room. So I said to Grand Chic, we're going to Home Depot. I need to get a new light to replace the light. So he reached up in the socket and he took the one of the two lights, the blown out one, out. And he held it to his cheek and like he was rubbing against his cheek and I thought he was listening to it. I said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm electric. And sort of normally I can restore, through this process because I have a lot of electricity running to me. So he rubs the bulb against his face, a big round bulb, and then he plugs it back up in the socket, and the light comes on. So talking about free electric energy.
Well, we're electrical.
He is. If I don't know about me and you, but the Grand Chic already is dealing with free electrical energy because I have never seen anything like that in my life. I've never seen that. I throw a rub away. I thought you were going to listen to it to see if you could hear the filament, but you rubbed it against your cheek and then plugged it back in, and it came on. You're electric. Now you can answer the question.
Now go back to the
Do you I have to tell them, but you know how I am. When do you think we'll get our hands on free energy technology that could help relieve the people's economic burden? How can we do what you did?
As this biological war that's being waged against humanity wanes, and the waning of it has much to do with the consciousness of the people, meaning that the people are really kind of like being exposed. It has more to do with taking the blinders off of people's eyes. Because the ancient technologies of Hikupta and the Yucatan, that's thousands of years old. It's not even thousands, it's actually millions.
What have they found in tombs? Generators.
This is what's going to happen. They are going to start giving to the public little pieces of technology in instrumentalities to bypass the Khazarian operators' monopoly on oil and gas and all this stuff, which is really